All right, so we're going to talk today about I was going to say my favorite cheat codes, but honestly, one of the most powerful cheat codes out there. It's super easy to use. It doesn't really take a whole lot of expertise to actually implement, and it's arguably the most powerful one we have. I mean, storytelling is probably the most powerful one, but this one is really like 1A, or there's a great argument to be made. They're tied. I mean, like it's unbelievably awesome, and everybody uses it. Movies use it all the time. TV shows use it all the time. The television news. Oh my gosh. If you watch any news show at all, this is always employed, and they call it a tease in the broadcast area. You got to please your advertisers, so they'll drop a tease right before an advertisement. Um, but it's a concept, an attraction cheat code that we're going to talk about today called curiosity. And the idea is this: is that people have in their mind we have an innate need where we want to kind of tie off all the loose ends so that we fully understand everything and we feel good proceeding on with our lives otherwise. Now, baked into that is in the sense that it's really easy for us to not have that baked in. And so there's things that we have that will run into something and we fully don't understand it. Our subconscious mind can't connect all the dots, and we feel like this compulsive need to be able to do that. So I'll give you an example. So we talked about in television, broadcast news does it all the time. So if they have a little advertisement for something crazy going on, like a little 5-second hit right before a show starts, because the network didn't sell a 15-second slot or whatever, they'll just say, hey, um, they'll have some compelling question or some loose end thing. They're like, hey, the biggest thing you need to worry about this weekend, we're going to talk about that tonight at 6 o'clock on the news, right? Or what they'll do is right before they go to commercial, and this is true for radio and TV, they'll make a point, they'll leave some room out left, and they'll say, hey, listen, we're going to talk about, on the next side of this break, we're going to talk about this and this and this, and they'll get right up to the edge and they'll explain it almost to a point where you fully understand it, and they'll say, but we're going to talk about it right after this break. And so the idea is they want to make sure that you're listening to the advertising because they want to please their advertisers because that's how they get paid, right? It's their business model. And so what they'll do when they come back, you'd think that as soon as they came back, they would talk about it right out of the break, but they never do. So what they want to do is they'll string it along. Let's say you have an 8-minute block on a news program. They'll probably run it just to tease you and drag it along. They'll probably run it anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes later in there just to keep you watching the program. So, because if they came back from commercial and you explained it, then, they would have a plausible reason in their mind to go do something else because you've solved their problem. But if they can get you watching, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, when are they going to finally talk about this? You're going to end up watching more of it, and you're kind of going to be in the train of thought where you're committed to actually watch it. And then, by the time they've answered it, they're about a minute later, they're going to drop another curiosity bomb on you. And so the idea is for them to do that. Now, they do it in TV and the news a lot, but they do it on the radio all the time. I mean, my professional advertising background is really weird. It's like, I don't even see it anymore like I'm just a listener to a radio station. It's like I can see the rundown from the producer and the director to see how they wrote it. So anyway, the long and short part of it is that curiosity is designed to intentionally leave that string untied so that it just drives them nuts. And so one of the things that we do, if you're going to do anything, is you want to be able to, especially, and this is a great public speaking technique, is you want to have the topic of what you're talking about, and you want to just give small hints along the way. So let's say, for example, you brought somebody in. Let's say there's a video training that you're doing on, the 3 biggest mistakes that you're going to have on. Let's say you're an insurance agent. The 3 biggest things, the biggest mistakes that are going to cost you money on your insurance policy. You're going to have the biggest one be at the end, second biggest in the middle, and the smallest one there. And you're going to orate it in a way that lets them know that every single one is bigger. And you're going to remind them, hey, the last one is the biggest. So let's say, for example, you're going in, you're training, you're talking about this. We're going to get into the 3 biggest ones. in just a second, and then you kind of build on it, and then you hint into it and you say, okay, we're going to talk about number 3 right now. You get into number 3, you talk about it, and then while you're talking about it, say, hey, we still have 2 more you're going to get to, but you need to make sure you stick around for the last one, the most important one, because it's the one that's literally going to make or break way and save you money, and no one really knows how to do it unless they've been in the industry forever, and even then they probably don't really know this one. So then you talk about it a little bit, and then you bring them a hint and you let it go. You bring them a hint and you let it go. And what happens is you end up building kind of a crescendo up so that people feel like every minute that they spend listening to you, they're a little bit closer, and man, the solution they're waiting for could be there at any time. So the key with curiosity, though, is that people feel, and this is honestly a really stupid way of deciding things in life, but it's the way that we're kind of wired to do things, is they feel like a commitment that once you started doing something, you have to finish it off. So it's the same thing. Like, let's say that you started watching a series on Netflix and you got halfway through the first season. I mean, some people might just stop watching it if they hate it halfway through the first season, but absent that, they're going to keep watching and watching because they want to see what happens with the characters. Does one of them die? How is it solved? Is there a kidnapping? Is there a murder that has to be solved? Who's the person that killed him? And the British crime dramas, they do an excellent job at that. It's my favorite little niche to watch on streaming services, are those 8-part, 1-season British crime, mini-series or a season or a limited series or whatever. And so the idea is that you're teasing and teasing and teasing, but you're creating curiosity and making the itch worse. You don't scratch the itch. You want to drive the itch and make it even worse. So that's what I was telling you. It's like when you have that training and there's 3 items, you're not just going to say, okay, hey, listen, in 10 minutes, the worst thing you could do is say, all right, in 13 minutes, we're going to talk about the 3rd one. And then they know that, all right, I have 13 minutes. I can just twiddle my fingers or go do something else, and I'll come back and I'll still get it. But you want to give that hint just to give the kind of a sense that, look, it could come at any point in time and you could miss something. So you need to stay engaged and make sure you don't miss anything, because this fear of missing out, that FOMO, is a big thing. And so people will often commit to complete something, one, for the sake of committing it because they've already given so much time to doing it, which is, in business school, they call it a spent cost or a sunk cost. And so people listen, if I spent this much money on, even a bad product, I'm still going to use it to, in my mind, justify the money that I spent on it. Because the worst thing you could do is drop $400 on something that you never used. And then it's like, whatever. No, I bought it. I'm going to use it. And even sports teams do that. They'll sign somebody and they realize right off the bat or soon after, it's like, wow, I overpaid for this guy to be on my team. But they still play him. They're like, all right, if we're going to pay this guy $400 million, then we're going to pay him, which is really stupid. Like, okay, we're going to put somebody who really doesn't deserve to be in that role because we paid money for them to do that. It's dumb, it's stupid, but it's the way that people act inherently. And so with curiosity, it's the same thing. So you take all these things together and you want to overtly state what's going to happen, right? And at the very least, you want to seriously infer it and let them, and kind of build to a point where you're going to describe it a little bit. So, the 3 biggest mistakes that'll cost you money. And the second one is really important because I guarantee you've done it in the last year. And now they're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? What are the things that directly apply to me? And they're curious how you would know. Does this guy really know if I did it? And so there's this curiosity factor that gets built in for them to do that. But that third one, it's going to change everything. It's going to really make you question everything that you've done before, and it's going to really redefine how you look at things. And so you build it up, and it's just like there's a little bit of an itch, and people are begging you to scratch it, and I'm just going to make the itch worse, and they're going to beg even more, but it's in their own mind. And so when you do that, it finally gets to that point where when you bring it forward, you want to tie it into a solution that you have. Now, pre-COVID, you're always going to tie it into your product. But during COVID, you still might do to your product, but during COVID, you also want to tie it to things that can solve a problem for them. So If it's not the product because they don't have money, and again, I go back to the company that I know people work, they work at CEO masterminds. They're still going to do things, and they want to add value and keep you engaged in their process. But they want to build value so that you really kind of want to keep getting involved in watching their videos or being involved in their company, because when things open up, they're going to be that company is going to be the first place where they spend their money. It's just a fact of the matter. It's how things work. So the idea of using curiosity is really important, because people have an inherent desire and a need, even a compulsive need, to tie off loose ends. But the more you can tease it out, which is a broadcast industry term, the more you can tease it out and tease it out and tease it out, they're more likely to spend time doing it. And even on, like, you look at social media, a lot of their algorithms are designed that way, but it's in a different way. It's not necessarily curiosity, although there is a thing where they're talking about, like, in the age of COVID, where people are scrolling and there's just nothing but bad news. They call it doom scrolling, which is one of my favorite terms I've heard lately. But the idea is that they're scrolling at the curiosity of what's the next catastrophe or what's the horrible thing. So, it could be something where it's politics and you're like, oh my gosh, if you're a Trump supporter, oh my gosh, Trump's down by 7 points in Iowa. I'm just making up numbers, but it's like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? He's not going to get elected. This sucks. I need to read more. I need to feel better about myself. Maybe the next thing is a better thing that's going to make me feel better. And so, or it could be something where if you're a Biden supporter, it's like, oh my gosh, look, or you hate Trump or whatever. It's like, oh my gosh, look at this crazy thing that Trump did. And then it's just like, doom porn in a sense. I'd create a new term. Maybe that'll catch on. But, and basically it's set where you're wiring yourself to be rewarded for experiencing extreme highs or extreme lows. But in the end, it drives on this sense of curiosity. So my question to you is, what can you do to really provide curiosity, to take the uncertainty that people have innately going on right now, and hopefully after COVID, that's a little different set of circumstances, but what are the things that you can do where you can identify people's sense of insecurity? They're unsure, they're just, I don't know, they don't know how to proceed on a certain topic, they're scared, they're afraid to air out their fears and their worries and all this stuff, but you can actually proactively, kind of break the ice on that and give them curiosity that indicates that, one, you're an expert, you know how to do it, and three, that you can help solve their problem. Whether or not it's buying the product right now really doesn't matter, but you want to be able to solve their problem, because they're going to go to you most often because they're going through this sense of uncertainty, and you are the voice of clarity and of a solution in their life. And then when COVID passes, that you're going to have the ability to be the first in line to solve that problem, because you've been there adding value to other people, when the other people who maybe your competitors stopped reaching out to them because they stopped buying. And they quickly realized, look, all these other people are only reaching out to me for money, right? It's almost having like a sugar daddy, like a girl that has a sugar daddy. I'm only interested in you if you have money, and once you're broke, I'm out. But when you're actually reaching out and solving problems for them when they don't have money, it really builds credibility and goodwill. And then once the COVID thing passes, you're going to be first in line with no one behind you. So with that being said, next week we're going to talk about an attraction switch. And again, we are talking about curiosity. So I'm just not going to tell you the whole thing right now, right? I mean, that much you do know. I'm not going to tell you everything you need to know about it. But the next one we're going to talk about is one that we've experienced probably more this year than any year that I've ever been alive. And I would say we've probably seen it more this year than in the last 30 years combined. And I would say, without a doubt, in the last 3 to 4 years than probably the last 100 years combined. And I haven't been around 100 years, but I really don't think I really don't doubt those numbers at all. So to find that out, just stick around. You're getting get an email or get a notification if you are subscribed to this podcast, and we'll talk about it next week. But it's a lot of fun. I wasn't going to tell you about it because we have a subject on curiosity, but it's one that you will not miss, because we're going to kind of open the door and pull the wizard out from behind the curtain, and I'm going to show you exactly how A lot of media right now are raking up incredible ratings in the year 2020, and especially the last 4 years, because they know how to use this attraction cheat code. I'm going to show you how you can use it as well and drive more business to your door, drive more eyeballs to your business, and really get a better visibility for yourself than you've ever done before. With that being said, I still didn't tell you. We'll see you next week. To get more information on the sales cheat code, go ahead and click on the subscribe button below. Also, down below in the video description, down there, there's a link that takes you to our website that gives you additional content, some additional freebies that we have, and gives you information on some programs that we have that have been proven to help people to make sales easy so that you can make the kind of money you want, live the lifestyle that you've always wanted, and not have to struggle in the process. And what might be the coolest thing of all is you don't have to put much effort into it. It truly is a cheat code that most people don't know about. And it's a cheat code that can change your life today. So click on the link below and let me help you start to experience these results starting right now.